Hi, in this module we're talking about confidentiality. And as usual, interesting areas of ethical conduct are the grey areas. Obviously, you're not supposed to disclose confidential information to others. That's pretty clear. So why do people do it? I mean, obviously there's a small number of people who will, for whatever profit, whatever sinister purpose of their own, will do this deliberately. But in reality, most of the time, where there are breaches of confidentiality, they come from all too human error. And one of the things I want to talk about today is information security. And this is not the usual way that lawyers approach the problem of confidentiality. They tend to have a very monodisciplinary focus on what it means for law. But it's an area where I think we can very profitably look at other disciplines, and we can particularly look at technology and some of the principles around information security and data security. And one thing that's important about that is, first of all, making sure your technical systems are secure. And these days there's no excuse not to have a secure system. We've gone beyond the days of filing cabinets and so on, and beyond the days when lawyers could say, oh, well, I don't really do computers because they're so integral to what you do. But it's not just about technical security. It's not just about having, proper passwords, having your passwords changed regularly, and having an uppercase letter and a number and all those sorts of security things. There's also the area of social engineering, which is an important part of the whole hacking discipline, which is where you find out information through other means, through social means. Ways of locating passwords, when people are just picking obvious things like things that are on their desk that they see in front of them, or their favourite football team, or their children's names. Ways of getting access to information by, ringing up and saying, this is your IT department and we need to change your password, can you let me know your password? And other ways of physical intrusion, coming into a building knowing where you're supposed to be there. I'm carrying a big heavy box, can someone hold the door open for me? Obviously that's not going to work in a small firm where you know everyone, but in a large organisation, those forms of intrusion are very, very important. And what we learn from the world of data security and information security is the importance of setting up good systems. So many ethical breaches in this area and the others that we've looked at really are about a loss of control. They're about people not doing what they probably should have done in the first place, through carelessness or through lack of time or lack of resources, and then there's that sort of snowballing effect. And we find that with confidentiality as well. The failure to set up proper and secure confidential systems and information systems within an organisation can be something that at the start you think, well, we'll sort that out later. That'll be something we'll figure out when we don't need it yet. When we build and we're larger, we'll have to worry about that. But of course, the decisions you make early on, they snowball. And I guess one of the things we try to emphasise in our law program is the importance of things like understanding the design of systems. It's not just about knowing the law, it's about understanding some of these other things as well. Where confidentiality really, really comes into play is where there are conflicts of interest, and that's a topic we're going to talk about more next week. But when you have conflicts of interest within your organisation, any kind of leaky information systems can get you into all sorts of trouble. I mean, you can end up in the situation where someone will just make a mistake and they'll say to the client, so Mrs. Smith, I believe we're here today to talk about the money that you want to hide offshore somewhere. Oh, sorry, that was Mr. Smith that wanted to do that. He wanted to hide that from you, didn't he? Oops. Stupid example, but when there are multiple interests at play, it can be difficult to keep one case straight from another. It can be as simple as someone having a piece of correspondence, a piece of evidence, or a document, putting it in the wrong file when there's a similar name or a related company or a company that's involved in the same issue on a different side. So this stuff is crucial. It's not just about the individual practitioner, it's also about all the other members of the organisation, the administrative staff as well. And this is where we'll talk about it more next week, the concept of setting up Chinese walls within an organisation, where there are potential conflicts of being able to keep those separate as though they are individual different organisations. And one of the important things about Chinese walls is about that flow of information and keeping that clear. And these are issues, I think, most extreme at the big end and at the small end. The small end, you've got small firms with a number of clients who may overlap, and the classic example of that is a country town where you maybe only have one solicitor in town, and they serve everyone, and that can be you can get conflicts of interest there, and you can end up with just that, inability to keep one set of information straight from the other. The other place where it becomes a problem is at the very, very large end, where you end up with large numbers of clients and conflicts that occur that are possibly things that you don't necessarily even connect. It can be difficult when there's large numbers of clients and they have different numbers of corporations to see where this conflict may potentially occur. And again, that's another danger zone. And that could be a situation where very simple mistakes on confidentiality can have larger long-term effects. So we will look at the rules this week, and I think the important thing to bear in mind is that it's not just about people blabbing, although we have to be concerned about that too. And with the rise of social media, we do have to be aware that things can pass beyond. We can tweet something about, an annoying client, which we shouldn't do. But if we do, and that passes through multiple hands and gets back to the annoying client, that's all kinds of problems. And even if you don't, you're following some basic rules of confidentiality and you're saying, I had a really annoying client today, blah, blah, blah. I'm not naming them, but, this is what happened. The client, if the client sees that, they could figure out who, or other people could figure out who that client is just by the context. So, it's one of those things that we stress all the way through, getting into good habits in terms of social media. And again, it's not just about you, it's about your organisation. It's about making sure that everyone who works for you is maintaining those rules as well. And then we end up in very interesting and quite difficult situations where, workplaces want to keep surveillance on the social media of their staff. And that's really unfair and probably illegal in some ways. But on the flip side, you're also seeing organisations that are concerned about information security and are concerned that if they don't do something, then there could be all kinds of breaches going on. Relatively junior, relatively inexperienced, non-qualified members of staff saying all kinds of things that they're ultimately going to be responsible for. So, interesting, complicated area, and I hope you find some very interesting, thorny dilemmas in this module.